The world's largest exchange has just gone on the national news and exposed some sovereign wealth funds who have been secretly buying all of the Bitcoin in April. Could they be the reason for the recent Bitcoin price pump? But it's not just sovereign wealth funds. Yesterday, a G20 central bank has been exposed for doubling down on MicroStrategy and buying hundreds of millions of dollars worth of MSTR. But before we get into all that, let's play you the clip as we break it down live. So here's the clip. And of course, I'm not alone. I got Luke with us today again. So you already know it's going to get bullish. And we got a very special guest, guys. We have one of you guys from the chat, Chad Mercer, a longtime Bitcoiner. We have some interesting stories for you guys in the culture. This guy's been in Bitcoin since 2014. I think there's going to be a lot of wisdom on today's show. All right. Anyways, let's get into the source material and we'll break down today's news story. So as you can see here, and for the audio listeners, we got this clip coming out of CNBC Squawk Box, and it is Coinbase head of institutional trading. Now, before you throw tomatoes, I know a lot of us aren't biggest fans of Coinbase, but there was some signal coming out of this clip here. And as you can see from the tweet, it basically says sovereign wealth funds and institutions have been piling into Bitcoin in April while retail has been selling. As we've been telling you guys for a long time, this is not the time to be selling your Bitcoin. If you're looking at any indicators, everyone is starting to, at the very least, get some appetite for Bitcoin. Now, the main point here is let's see the reasonings why they're looking at Bitcoin. So we're going to play the clip. Again, we're going to break it down why we go live. So here we go.
The pools of capital that have been buying during April, sovereign wealth funds, large institutional, long-term duration pools of capital, they're looking at it basically three ways. One is, if you think about the tariff announcement April 2nd, if you believe that that's going to have a spillover effect on global trade, you believe there's going to be less global trade, then much of which is denominated in U.S. dollars, then you think there'll be lower demand for U.S. dollars, that we refer to as de-dollarization. Well, some of the ways Bitcoin is used by these large pools of capital is they buy it in their local fiat currency, they hold it, and they sell it into dollars when they need it. Right. Well, if you think dollar is going to weaken, then you don't do that anymore. And so you're holding more Bitcoin. And these, again, large insurance pools, sovereigns, et cetera. So that's one thing, is this de-dollarization trade.
As you can hear, guys, we've been saying this on the show, I think, since this whole trade war is happening, that, you know, there is a lot of things going on in the macroeconomic landscape right now that a lot of people are probably not seeing. If you're in the traditional financial system and you're not looking at what's happening with Bitcoin, you are probably unsure of what's happening. And even some Bitcoiners, we're not really sure what's going on. But we have been seeing a trend for over a year now of this idea of de-dollarization. And depending on what camp you are in right now, you may be thinking that what the Trump or Biden administration is doing is they're trying to weaken the dollar. And as you see, there is economic war going on right now. So people are trying to find some right positioning here. Where is the best place to store your value? A lot of people are going into gold. We're seeing a lot of people dump treasuries. And of course, as we saw at the beginning of this week, we're seeing that the Bitcoin price is running. And if the sovereign wealth funds, the insurance capital, the institutional capital, even nation states are looking at Bitcoin, look, I don't know about you guys, but I think this is more signal to the idea that we keep telling you guys. It is Bitcoin. It is always Bitcoin, and all roads lead to Bitcoin here. Now, Luke, I do want to pass it on to you real quick. On this idea of de-dollarization, how big of a signal do you think this is for everyone across the board in TradFi?
Yeah, so I think a lot of crazy Bitcoiners for the past 5, 10, 15, 16 years, in Chad's case, 12 years here, has been saying, look, every single nation state is going to have to use Bitcoin eventually. And we've all been, told we're crazy for the past 5 years, 10 years. And it's only really been in the past 6 to 12, maybe 18 months that what the crazy Bitcoiners like myself and, Simply Bitcoin have been saying for so long is slowly becoming true. America is creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve. We now have China and Russia, two of the world's largest superpowers in the world, literally being exposed by a multi-trillion-dollar firm for trading in Bitcoin. And we have so many other nation states all around the world who is mining Bitcoin and relying on Bitcoin as this strategic treasury asset. So I just think it's inevitable that this trend continues. And I think we're kind of at the exponential phase of adoption, so to say, now that America has kind of, I need to be really careful what I say, but let's say they've put their card on the table. That's what they've slapped onto the table. They've said, look at my hand. I have a really great, set of cards, so to say. All of the other nation states are going to be forced to FOMO and kind of match the girthy set of cards that America has slapped onto the table. So I think we're really going to see things accelerate here.
Oh, okay, Luke. This is a family-friendly show here. All right. Let's play this clip a little more and let's see what the other two reasons are.
The second piece is that post-COVID, Bitcoin kind of got caught up in this levered tech trade, kind of just bundled into the QQQ, bundled into NVIDIA. It's not really a tech stock, but it kind of got associated with tech stocks.
Was it? I always thought that the issue was that there were retail investors who were taking their winnings, in some cases, from an NVIDIA or a Apple or Meta, whatever, one of the Mag 7, and then moving it into Bitcoin. And therefore, then it was all tracking because to the extent that then they owned that other stuff too. Right. Whenever it went down, they had to sell out of stuff. They also were selling out of Bitcoin.
During the bubbly periods in tech stocks, that's not an unfair assumption, but I'll note one thing. So for the month of April, as you would expect, gold ETF inflows were massive. I think $8.5 billion roughly from the 2nd through the 22nd. Okay. Might surprise you to learn that Bitcoin ETF flows were net negative to the tune of about 470 million. So the opposite of that was occurring. So institutions, sovereigns, patient pools of capital were piling in during April, which resulted in about a 13% increase in Bitcoin versus 10.5 for gold. And retail via the ETF were exiting. So you got to kind of ask yourself, what do the institutions know
were the
that
institutions
retail doesn't?
Buying Bitcoin direct? And how many of them are now buying via ETFs or other forms?
Well, hard to say. They don't, especially the sovereign wealth funds, don't report.
Right. No, but you're also, I imagine, seeing the ETFs buying, because the ETFs should be buying on
in the last couple of days.
But the ETF should be buying on a relative basis on behalf of their customer base.
Right, assuming there were inflows, right? But the last couple of days, yes, we've had inflow. But still, as of yesterday, should change today, we've had net negative ETF inflows. So. So the first reason is de-dollarization. The second reason is this tech unwinding of this big levered tech trade and Bitcoin trading on its core characteristics, which again are similar to gold. You've got scarcity, immutability, non-sovereign asset, portability. Right. So trading the way people who believe in Bitcoin would like it to trade.
Interesting take here. Now, I might have to pass this over to Luke because he's a little more of the expert on the ETF inflow stuff, but the point remains the same, and something we've been saying, and now we're getting more and more evidence about this, is that, hey, look, as we see, retail might be getting scared out of the market because the price is going sideways, it's going down, people are, getting impatient, they're wondering what is going on with this Bitcoin thing. I would thought it was going to go up to, $100,000 one day in a candle, and they're selling out. And we're seeing that institutions are taking the opposite bet. And we've been kind of covering this a few times on the show in the past recent weeks, is like, hey, when we see the Bitcoin price dip, who is buying the Bitcoin? I think I did that on yesterday's show. We're saying BlackRock, Fidelity, ARK, etc. They're the ones buying the Bitcoin. And hey, I hate to use the term smart money, but if you aren't following the money here, guys, you might not be seeing what is going on, and people are starting to get that Bitcoin exposure. So, Luke, could you break down this net negative inflow ETF talk for the layman out here, for the 45 IQ Bitcoiner like myself? What exactly is he saying here?
We've gone from 80 IQ to 45 IQ.
We got to lower the expectations here.
That's right. We got to try to let everyone in. So, yeah, I think ETF flows, they ebb and flow, so to say, no pun intended. When the price is going up, we naturally see a large increase in the amount of people who are interested by the ETFs. They want to put that in their portfolio. And naturally, when the price turns down, you do see a little bit of sell pressure out of the ETFs. I've been pleasantly surprised at how little that is. I think over the most recent correction we had, we saw like a 30% correction, but like 1 to 2% of the total funds in the ETF left the ETF. So it's really not that much of a drawdown at all. I think this week though, more recently, with the price pump, Bitcoin's kind of recovered from 75K to nearly 95K right now. So we've had a nice little move here. And I think I've seen something like $1.6, $1.7 billion of inflows this week alone. So somewhere around ETFs just this week, which is, it's 15,000? That can't be right. Maybe it's 1,500. Anyway, what has happened this week is that the ETFs have bought pretty much all of the Bitcoin that's been mined. Okay, so we know that about 450 Bitcoin are mined every day. And The ETFs are buying all of that alone. And again, we're not even talking about the other large entities buying Bitcoin when we're talking about all this supply being eaten up by the whales. Earlier in the week, we did a live stream talking about how whales this year have bought 300% of the new supply. Yesterday, Opti gave you guys a video showing that a brand new company headed up by Jack Mallers and Howard Lutnick, titled 21, that just come out with a 42,000 Bitcoin stack to begin things. So again, I think this supply suffocation that we're seeing, the ETFs is just one small contributor to what I think is potentially the most underrated thing happening in Bitcoin right now. And that is that quiet sucking sound of that water leaving the bathtub. And I think as the water in that bathtub gets lower and lower, and as the Bitcoin on exchanges gets lower and lower, that sucking sound is going to become louder and louder. And I think we're going to start to see a little bit of a mad scramble for Bitcoin here.
Hey, yo, Luke, chill for real on the show. He did talk about breaking away from tech stocks, and I have a clip of Jack Mallers kind of talking about this, so we'll skirt that for the next segment, and then I'm going to play it really quick. Let's get to the third reason here, and then we'll bring up Chad, and we'll have a full conversation about what we heard right here.
The last was, to me, the most interesting, which is I spoke to a couple of traders who said, look, if you believe these conditions, these de-dollarization conditions are going to persist, you're looking at gold, obviously, first and foremost, but maybe you missed out on that trade. You're looking at that rally and saying, I missed the boat on that. So what other assets could participate in that market panic long-term inflation hedge? When you do the work, there's a very short list of assets that mirror the characteristics of gold. Bitcoin is on that short list. In addition to the 4 characteristics I mentioned, its mining scarcity, its mining difficulty gets harder over time.
Yeah, and you can add 2 or 3 more good things about Bitcoin that you didn't even mention. So, I mean, maybe it never is used to wire money or whatever you want to call it over to the Far East or something, but you certainly can do it instantaneously, frictionless, right?
And you could do it overnight.
And you don't have to, in gold, I mean, you better, it's heavy, you better store it, you better insure it. I mean, there's a lot of things.
Portability is an under-looked at, it's under-emphasized skill asset. It's very, very hard to transport large amounts of cash. It's very, very hard to transport large amounts of gold.
Right.
Anyways, you guys get the picture. You guys get the gist here. As we've been saying for a long time, if you put all of these concerns on, an Excel spreadsheet and you look at the difference between gold and Bitcoin or any other store of value, it becomes very clear right off the bat that Bitcoin is fundamentally different because of all the principles, fundamentals of Bitcoin that we constantly talk about here. And the one they're really talking about is portability. And as we know, Bitcoin is the most liquid asset, the most liquid network. It's open 24 hours a day, 365 days out of the year, open at all times. And I forget what the metric is in regards to the stock market when their timing's open. And Bitcoin is, based in comparison, already been open longer than the stock market has been, and it's been around for 100 years plus. And so people are starting to understand the very basics of Bitcoin, and that message is spreading. So I think we can kind of agree or confirm this idea that the signal is spreading and more people are waking up to what Bitcoin is, and it's becoming very hard to ignore it, especially in the face of all the economic headwinds we're seeing right now. Bitcoin is clearly the winner. And you should be having some Bitcoin at this point, but it takes a while for these Titanics to turn around, but you're seeing that it's happening very slowly. So on that note, I'm gonna pass it over to Chad. Chad, you've been in Bitcoin for a long time. What's your thoughts hearing this? Are you surprised by this? Are you surprised sovereign wealth funds are getting in Bitcoin? What's your takeaway from that clip?
Am I surprised? Absolutely not. This is one of those things that I think is very important for people to understand. And that clip has just got so much stuff in it. The part where the Coinbase guy was talking about portability in reference to gold in the original, I do appreciate that they corrected that discussion because it isn't nearly as portable as Bitcoin, and it's not on 24/7 and all those kinds of things. The thing to note, though, is that all these discussions about sovereign wealth funds and the movement therein, understand that these are organizations that cannot turn quickly. When something happens, it's going to take a long time for that. Like you said, the Titanic, it takes a long time for every one of those organizations to turn around. So when you talk about these big companies, especially like the 21 Capital that came out yesterday, which I'm very excited about, by the way, when that happens, that's not something where they're going to be able to liquidate all of that Bitcoin. So like we've been talking about, Luke was mentioning the buying all the mined Bitcoin. There's a reason that other large corporations and nation states are mining Bitcoin, because that is going to be one of the only ways you're going to even be able to get Bitcoin. So this whole idea of the de-dollarization, I mean, we can talk about all the different things, like how Bitcoin's being bought nationwide. You can't invest in, American stocks when you're in some countries, right? Some non-US countries, right? So all the money is just going to end up getting funneled into Bitcoin. This de-dollarization thing is going to be massive, and you better get on the boat, because you don't want to not be there.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. I think we're seeing more signal of that being the case. Anyways, Luke, what's your thoughts on the overall clip here? And the chat's saying that sounds a little buggy. Let me know. Let me know if I can figure it out. Anyways, go, Luke.
Yeah. So I think, look, the signal here, the world's largest exchange, Coinbase, coming out and saying the quiet parts out loud, confirming again a lot of the things that the Bitcoin only creators have been speculating about. Sovereign wealth funds are quietly buying Bitcoin. I think this is, again, just another huge piece of signal not a lot of people are paying attention to. Again, we do know publicly that some really large sovereign wealth funds out of the Middle East, for example, the Abu Dhabi sovereign wealth funds bought $450 million worth of Bitcoin. We know that pension funds are really interested in Bitcoin. Even with, we know we're about to reveal central banks are even printing money to buy shares of MicroStrategy, while they're simultaneously saying, yeah, Bitcoin, we don't want that in our reserves. That's what they're saying publicly. But privately, they're firing up the money printers and buying MicroStrategy shares. So I think this is just another big signal that one of the largest markets in the world, sovereign wealth fund market, is slowly but surely doing a lot more than just dipping their toe in the water. They're going all in. They're slowly but surely adding a lot of Bitcoin to their balance sheets. And I don't think it's any coincidence that Donald Trump now wants to create a sovereign wealth fund for America. So firstly, a couple of assumptions here. Do we really think Bitcoin is not going to be in this sovereign wealth fund? I think that would be ludicrous. That would be an absurd assumption. The second little interesting tidbit about this is it's probably going to be a big one. Do we really think that Donald Trump is just going to create an average size sovereign wealth fund? No. He wants to make America great again. He wants to create the biggest sovereign wealth fund. So we know that the Norwegian sovereign wealth fund is something like $1.7 trillion. So I think America is going to want to create at least a $2 trillion sovereign wealth fund. I'd be hard pressed to think that, they're not going to take at least a 1, 2, maybe 5% allocation to Bitcoin. So yeah, I mean, stay tuned. I think the sovereign wealth funds, they kind of are the 900-pound elephant in the room that not enough people are paying attention to.
Yeah, totally. And Luke, great segue. So let's just bring that up real quick. Here is the second news story, guys. So Swiss National Bank acquires MSTR for Bitcoin exposure. Now, you may be thinking this is an old news story. We did cover this when it came out. They did stack some MSTR, but now they doubled down. And if you look at this chart, it is absolutely insane. And here we go. From Coin Bureau, it goes, just in, Swiss National Bank reportedly buying MicroStrategy MSTR shares, gaining indirect Bitcoin exposure. Switzerland moves fuel crypto optimism, highlighting institutional trust in digital assets. Look at this chart, guys. Historical MSTR position of Swiss National Bank. They had some exposure. They were getting their toes dipped in. They were trying to get some indirect Bitcoin exposure, but it looks like they are doubling down. Now, of course, probably right now it's not socially acceptable for a national bank to fully acquire Bitcoin. And we do have a story here from just a month ago, March 21st, 2025, Swiss National Bank says no to Bitcoin reserves and no plans to buy crypto assets. Well, it looks like they aren't going to buy Bitcoin directly, spot Bitcoin, but they bought hundreds of millions of dollars of MSTR. And there is one good quote here from this article, and it's basically this. For investors, the Swiss National Bank's move highlights the increasing legitimacy of Bitcoin and other digital assets in mainstream finance. And for some institutions, investing in companies with large Bitcoin holdings offers a viable alternative to direct crypto exposure. So obviously, as Bitcoiners, we're like, man, one day they're going to turn on the money printer to buy Bitcoin directly, but we're just not there yet. You know, they're making it seem like basically a viable alternative. They'll just like, hey, look, we don't like this Bitcoin thing, but we like this company that all they do is buy Bitcoin. So I don't know. I think that's a tacit, you know, confirmation and agreement that this Bitcoin thing isn't going away and everyone wants some kind of Bitcoin exposure. So I found that very interesting. We have not gotten to the point where central banks are buying Bitcoin, but they're buying Bitcoin company stock. So I don't know. I think that's more signal to everything we're saying. And if you really consider what Jack Mallers and Tether and Cantor Fitzgerald and SoftBank did yesterday with announcing a MicroStrategy copycat, it's becoming very clear. Bitcoin is here. We're entering a new paradigm. I know I was getting trolled the other day. It's like, this time is different. Guys, this time is different. We have fundamentally entered. It's like literally, this starting to feel like the Trojan horse for Wall Street here, where I know we've been talking about for a while, like Wall Street is coming to Bitcoin. But I don't know if you guys saw Jack Mallers' announcement of 21, and he said something very interesting. It's not that Wall Street has entered Bitcoin, it's now Bitcoin has entered Wall Street. And I don't think we can fully calculate the ramifications of what this means. I think it's very interesting to see that with this new company 21, we are seeing that Jack Mallers and other Bitcoin companies, we're creating a whole new market, and this is the beginning of that. And you know, there's been some backlash with Mallers teaming up with Tether on Twitter, but I think this might be one of those really big moments that we can look back and be like, it was so obvious. When 21 came out, this was like the most obvious play ever. And now we're seeing Bitcoin is fully entrenched in Wall Street. And this is the Trojan horse. There's no going back from here. I think everyone is going to very quickly find out why Bitcoin is the superior asset, why it's the perfect collateral, why it's perfect money, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, I've been ranting long. So, Luke, you want to chime in here? We'll bring Chad out real quick, and then we'll get into the rest of the show.
Yeah, so I mean, how absurd is it that the head of the central bank of Switzerland in March comes out and says, yeah, we don't want to put Bitcoin in our reserves. No, we don't want it. And then quietly, we find out, because they have to declare what they're holding through these SEC filings, that they've just increased their Bitcoin holdings exponentially by hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, just think about how absurd that is, and whether you can really trust anything that any central banker says. Who actually trusts Christine Lagarde when she says, oh, our digital central bank digital currency slavery token is the future? It's launching in October 2025. And she's saying, yeah, I don't hold any Bitcoin. We're not interested in Bitcoin. Can we really believe these people anymore? Or are they all just quietly buying Bitcoin? I think they are all quietly buying Bitcoin. I've been screaming from the rooftops saying they have been buying Bitcoin since 2020. And I think the fact that exchanges holdings of Bitcoin is dropping like a rock right now, I think that's the real signal. What do they say? I sound like I'm flogging a dead horse. Is that correct? I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, I think you are. Metaphorically again.
Metaphorically again. Let's emphasize that. Metaphorically. But I keep doubling down on this point that, look, everything is noise. Just look at the Bitcoin on exchanges. The price, it's noise, okay? It's really disconnected from the fundamentals. Just look at what's going on with the Bitcoin on exchanges. Bitcoin's a transparent ledger. I think that's the biggest signal. And the biggest signal is screaming. Something changed in 2020. 1 million Bitcoin has disappeared off the exchanges since 2020. Around 900,000 Bitcoin have left the exchanges in the past 2 years. If this trend continues, we're going to be seeing some really interesting things in regards to a supply suffocation in the next year or two. So I think that should be the signal here. And again, just ignore what these politicians, bureaucrats, and central bankers are saying, because as Larry Fink has proved to us, they're all wrong, and they will all eventually bend the knee to Bitcoin, even if they call it an index of money laundering. And if they say, we see no demand from our clients for Bitcoin, and then a year later they launch the biggest and most successful Bitcoin ETF in history. Thank you, BlackRock. Thank you for once again confirming that the Bitcoin is all right.
100%. And it really does feel like the stars have aligned for Bitcoin. I know like last week we were sitting here and we're like, man, can the price start to do something? And literally in 1 week, we're all like 180 sentiment. Like actually guys, $1 million per Bitcoin doesn't sound that crazy. And I do have Adam back clip for the news for you guys. We'll talk about that a little bit, but Chad, jump in here real quick before we move on to the next segment.
Sure. I mean, I can't hardly beat what Luke was talking about. That, I mean, he's 100% right. You cannot pay attention to what they say. You have to pay attention to what they do. These people they don't care about you. That's the nicest way to say it. I'm going to not get in trouble with the algorithm by saying bad things, but when you start looking at exactly what's going on in the situation, you know, that's a perfect example. You got the exponential. That exponential is proof positive that these people are, somebody said in the chat, lying liars, and that lie. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, that's totally, as the heuristic always goes. You know, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. And, you know, politicians and even Wall Street, these big, you know, leads of these institutional financial capital markets, their main priority is misdirection. And so they'll say something and in the back end, they'll do the opposite. Like I've been saying for a while, a lot of Bitcoiners have been saying that like Jamie Dimon doesn't understand Bitcoin and, you know, like it's his job to not understand it. I've been taking the opposite route. I think he fully understands this, but publicly he has to say something different. And we even saw like Jay Powell bend the knee on this. Last year, a couple years ago, every time he talked about Bitcoin, he said one thing. And then literally right when the Trump administration came in, he's like, actually, you know, like the banks that are a part of the Federal Reserve, they can totally custody Bitcoin. We just got to make sure it's in a safe way. So you can see that publicly they say one thing, and on the back end, everyone is scrambling for a position either in Bitcoin or around Bitcoin, as we're seeing with the Cantor Fitzgerald news. I think this is one of the big signals of what's going on. Even though Howard Lutnick has been very bullish on Bitcoin, he's like, every time it dips, I'm going to buy $100 million of Bitcoin. But again, don't listen to what they say. Watch what they do. And we're starting to see all the stars align. So guys, I'm starting to get the tingle. Yeah, jump in, Chad. I
was just going to say one of the things I did want to mention though. Luke had talked about the transparency of the ledger, and that is the thing that Bitcoin, I mean, is superior to all the rest of the options, right? I think it's very important that we as Bitcoiners support companies that are willing to do proof of reserves like El Salvador is doing, and like a number of other companies. River's one that I frequent myself, because they do proof of reserves. That to me is critical because of the potential of paper Bitcoin. There's tons of, I mean, proof positive in recent history that you know, we can be fooled by paper Bitcoin. And I think personally that's where a lot of the lack of price movement is coming from, is the possibility that a lot of these yahoos are also lying to us in different ways and manipulating the price a bit with some paper Bitcoin. So I think that proof of reserves is incredibly important.
Totally agree. Couldn't agree more. We've been talking about that constantly on the show. All right, guys, before we get to the rest of the show, I do want to remind you guys to smash the like button, hit the subscriber button, and of course, comment on the video. Let us know what you think. Let's try to get to a goal of 250 likes. We're already at 150 likes currently. And of course, before we go further, let's plug our boys over at Bitcoin Well. This is the best place to buy your Bitcoin. It is Bitcoin only. It is self-custody by default, which literally means they can never rug pull you. In the history of Bitcoin, we've had huge examples of exchanges that basically get caught with their pants down. Well, Bitcoin Well, there's never that chance of that happening because you need a Bitcoin wallet. When you sign up, right when you buy the Bitcoin, it goes straight into your cold storage. This is the best way to buy Bitcoin. Of course, go to bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc. And when you sign up, you will get 3 chances to win 1 million sats in the Bitcoin wishing well. All right, guys. So we have a jam-packed show. We are going to cover this clip of Jack Mallers. It's not about the 21 announcement, but he is talking about something we've been saying on the show for a minute. Seems like we are decoupling from stocks. Obviously, it's still early. And then in the news, we got a clip of Adam Back, legendary Adam Back. And he's kind of breaking down or really hitting hard against the critics of diminishing returns. I'm a huge fan of breaking down that narrative here. And then in the end, culture with Chad. He's a longtime Bitcoiner. We got some interesting stories for you guys. So on that note, let's just get into the show.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
All right, guys, of course, scan the QR code, use the promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off. But I do want to talk about this. Stampseed just announced that you can make custom titanium seed plates. So you can put your own designs on there, guys. Super cool. If you want to customize these, of course, go to stampseed.com and hit the custom titanium seed plate. Absolutely awesome. As you can tell, they're working behind the scenes to get some cool stuff. All right, guys, we're over here on Clark Moody's dashboard reading the Bitcoin numbers. As you can see, the current Bitcoin price is $93,430 per Bitcoin, which means the sats per dollar, aka how much Bitcoin you can buy for a single dollar, aka how much the dollar is worth in Bitcoin, is currently at 1,070 sats per dollar. We're inching down under 1,000 sats. I love when we get under 1,000 sats. Anyways, the block height is 893,788. The market cap in fiat terms is $1.86 trillion. Actually, Luke, can you look at the market caps today? Global market caps behind the scenes. Maybe we can pull that up if anything's changed. Anyways, the Bitcoin versus gold market cap is currently at 7.94%, almost at 8% of the gold market cap. We're going to get way higher soon, guys. And the total percentage of Bitcoin that will ever be issued is 94.55%. Again, roughly 19.855 million Bitcoin in circulation. And the realized monetary inflation, literally the hardest money, the soundest money, the perfect money, is currently at 0.84%, taking fiat currencies to school. Did we pull it up? Do you have this? Did it move? Did it move on us? Did we pump back above Google and Amazon, or did it pump yesterday?
Let's show the guys. I got it pulled up.
We'll pull it up. Okay, can you zoom in a little bit? It looks like the stock market pumped a little bit. So we're still at the 8-8 position, but it looks like once we get frothy, guys, we're going to jump Amazon, Google, and silver very cleanly. So that's exciting to see. Very exciting. All right, guys, let's play you this clip, though. So again, this idea of Bitcoin separating from tech stocks, or the decoupling meme. Yes, I think we are a little premature on this. A lot of us Bitcoiners got really excited during the trade war because Bitcoin kind of was, it didn't dump too much. Yes, there still is some correlation in the markets right now. I think I saw yesterday, NASDAQ dropped about like 14% and Bitcoin NASDAQ QQQ dropped 11% and Bitcoin dropped 14%. So there's still some correlation, but as you can see, we're starting to see this decoupling play out in real time as NASDAQ and stock markets and equities kind of dump and Bitcoin pumps in the face of this. And Jack Mallers, I think, is of course ahead of the pack here. And this clip here, I think, is explaining what's going to happen in the future. And are we in this moment? We'll only be able to tell in hindsight, but it does seem like this is upon us. So let's play this clip for you guys, and then we'll kind of chat about it.
When I pulled this up and I saw Bitcoin had just went from a near 1 correlation and it's now down to a 0.53, my eyes are glued to this thing now. Is Bitcoin going to continue to fall, go below 0.5 and head towards 0 again? Because what is that telling us? To me, that tells me that Bitcoin smells blood. It smells the money printer. Somehow it's reading the Financial Times. It's reading Bloomberg. It's reading The Economist, and it's seeing fiat liquidity is around the corner. Currency units are about to be abundant. They have to print the money. Now, guys, being more practical, Bitcoin can't read an article, right? It's a protocol. It's bytes of data. But more practically, if they start making monetary conditions easier, if there is more fiat sloshing around, the market that's most sensitive to that, the markets that's going to move first and perform the best is Bitcoin, because it's the most free market and it's the most fixed market. That's it. Period. End of conversation. No debate. So when I saw Bitcoin start to decorrelate and it went from a 1 to a 0.53, and I made this chart, I was like, oh my goodness. Bitcoin's not necessarily correlated to the stock market or not correlated to the stock market. It's both. And it chooses its times to decorrelate and lead when massive world events are happening. And it affirms my suspicion and my predictions. This is slight validation. We're not there yet, but it's very slight validation that Bitcoin will decouple this year. It will lead the stock market up. It smells the money printer.
Let's go. We are going higher. Look, I think we've all been talking about this. I know it kind of made the waves ever since everyone, and we're going to talk about this in the news as well. Ever since a lot of people are kind of looking at Bitcoin cycles, and we're all wondering, like, is cycle theory dead? And then I think it was Lynn Alden who first came out. She's like, I think what we need to be looking at is global liquidity cycles. I think all of us Bitcoiners have kind of refocused our point of view, and we're like, oh, okay, this starts to make a lot more sense in the face of everything we are seeing. And I think Jack Mallers is right. Obviously, he's using like a metaphor here. It's like, Bitcoin reads all of the news sources and it knows what's coming. But we are seeing very clearly Bitcoin does sniff out that the money printer is coming. It does react to liquidity, more global liquidity, as Mallers was saying, more fiat dollars in the system sloshing around to find a home, eventually end up in Bitcoin. And as you're seeing, I think we have a bunch of data points and confirmation to this, that Bitcoin does lead all global market scenarios here. Whether we see, a crash, Bitcoin will obviously move first. Whether we see more global liquidity come into the system, Bitcoin will lead to the upside. And I think we're seeing this play out in real time. Obviously, as I say, looking at the Bitcoin price, it's like a real-time metric of what people believe in the economy. And so it's the aggregate collective of every one of us making decisions that show what is going on. And it's the real-time metric. It's the only real data we have here is the Bitcoin price. And I just love this, that Mallers is able to basically break down all of this complex, economic jargon into one simple chart. And he's like, look, we all know what's going to happen. They're going to turn on the money printer. This is going to end up in Bitcoin. And the only metric you really need to watch is what happens in the Bitcoin price or the Bitcoin industry, the Bitcoin network. This is the only data point you need to look at. And I think now we're seeing more people are starting to get that message. At one point, probably this year, we're starting to see it. Bitcoin will decouple from big tech, from NASDAQ, from equities, and it's going to start ripping. I know a lot of people have been saying that, hey, gold's starting to rip and Bitcoin's going to lag gold, but Bitcoin's going to go higher than gold. I think I agree with Mallers, where we're not seeing it yet, but we are seeing indicators of this being the case. And like I told Luke yesterday, if we see Bitcoin run, I think it is a big, big signal. It is, a blazing fire, and the smoke is telling people, hey, this Bitcoin thing is telling us what's going to happen in the global macro markets, while we have Jerome Powell and the Fed and all these central bankers trying to manipulate variables to ensure that fiat currencies don't die. And we're just like, just watch Bitcoin. All you have to do is simplify things and watch Bitcoin. Anyways, I'm going to pass it over to Chad. Chad, what's your thoughts on this? You've been in Bitcoin for a long time. Do you think Jack Mallers is right here? Or also, actually, maybe I'll leave the cycle question for the next segment. What do you think on Jack Mallers' little clip right there?
Jack Mallers is amazing. Everybody's talking about how they're excited about the price going up. My Strike direct deposit got me less sats this week, so I was not happy about that. I'd prefer the price to stay down for a while so I can get more. No, Mallers is amazing. And when you talk about the decoupling, the one thing that I think is interesting, and maybe I'm a crazy person, but I think that you have two completely different sides of the coin. You have the gold people, the people that understand sound money and all that kind of stuff, the people that Austrian economics and human action by Mises and all this kind of stuff, right? Then you've got the tech folks that understand technology, that understand like how the internet literally changed the world. Hey, can we invest in something else? These are both parties are interested in Bitcoin at this point. People that don't understand the tech, but they understand sound money, they're buying. The people that understand tech and have no idea about sound money, they're like, hey, this could be the way that I can invest in the internet of money. So I'm going to buy. So I think the market is insane right now. And I don't think that people understand that we're not talking about, there's not a single kind of person that needs Bitcoin. It's literally every single person that needs Bitcoin. And if you can latch on to any one of those truths to understand it, just that's one of the other pieces, and I can talk about this later, but the whole orange pilling thing, you got to figure out what people are going to connect to. I'm a big nerd, a total geek, whatever. I'm a technology guy. That's the thing that you know, excites me. But I'm also interested in the sound money thing. I mean, somebody was saying something about my shirt. Yes, it says anarcho-Christian on it. Because
okay.
I'm more interested in you know, foundational truth than the lies and nonsense we're told. So I think that that's one of the things we're just trying to find the thing that people can latch onto. Sound money, cool, awesome technology. That's literally like Michael Saylor talks about all the time, that, you know, that wall of energy protecting money. That's also awesome. So how can we reach people? Let's do it.
Let's go. Hold on. Look, first off, before I pass it to Luke, Chad, first Bitcoin appearance, and it's like, bro, off the bench, off the chat, just coming in hard and killing it, dude. We got to bring you back on more often. This is great. So, guys, hey, there's hope for you guys in the chat as well. You know, you don't just have to troll us. You can come on the show and spit some facts. All right, Luke. What's your thoughts on this Jack Mallers take?
Yeah, so I think Jack is one of the most bullish people in Bitcoin, and I always pay close attention to what Jack says, because he's seen a lot of inside baseball in the Bitcoin space. He was obviously in El Salvador and helped a lot with creating this Bitcoin legal tender announcement. He has Strike. Obviously, Strike has roots in lots of different countries around the world, so he kind of knows, all right, which of these countries wants Bitcoin, which of these countries wants to use the Lightning Network. So yeah, I think that the whole idea of Bitcoin and what's happening with the traditional markets, it's a really interesting one. I think yesterday we were kind of talking about this idea of the decoupling, and I think right now I think it's tough to say that we're seeing the full-blown decoupling, because again, I still think the full-blown decoupling happens when we see this big $100,000 daily candle. I think that's when it's going to become absolutely undeniable that Bitcoin is decoupling. And I do think that day is probably closer than most people expected. So until we see the big full-blown decoupling, I just consider everything else interesting. I'm not going to call it noise. I do think it's interesting that Bitcoin right now is acting far more like a safe haven than what used to be the safe havens are acting. For example, US Treasuries. They were the world's saving account. For the past 50 years, countries all around the world knew that they needed to buy oil, the most important resource, with US dollars. So since the petrodollar agreement was struck in 1973, sovereigns all around the world, nation states, have been putting US treasuries into their treasuries. No pun intended. And I think that's really interesting, because you've only seen treasuries perform really well over the past 50 years. But all of that really started to change post-2020. Again, I do think 2020 was an inflection point for a lot of these cycles that we're living through today. And I find it fascinating that right now, the TLT, the US government official 20-year bond, is down by like 50% from its all-time high 3 years ago. And Bitcoin's doing incredibly well. So I kind of think about, I like to look at decouplings on more of a medium-term time horizon. And when you do look at decouplings on a medium-term time horizon, Bitcoin's already done it. Bitcoin has already decoupled. It already is the global safe haven asset. Over the past 3 to 4 years, Bitcoin's up hundreds of percent. And the US 20-year treasury bond, again, treasuries are tens of trillions of dollars in size. They've been bleeding capital, bleeding trillions of dollars of capital. And all this money is flowing into safe havens of the world. Bitcoin, $2 trillion asset, and gold, it's approaching $20 trillion in size. So again, I'm paying very close attention to the decouplings, but I'm more interested in these kind of medium-term and long-term decouplings.
Love it, Luke. I mean, for usually being the most bearish guy or bullish guy on the show, you're being a little level-headed on today's show. I love it. It's hard to ever see Luke be level-headed here. And just one more comment. The chat is going so hard right now. They're saying they're so hopped up on hopium. So let's. We're doubling down on that. We're going to give you even more hopium right now on the news because we have Adam back. I think destroying the diminishing returns meme. And I know that's like the new hot rage right now. And if you do look at the charts, they do have a point when they talk about diminishing returns. But let's hear what Adam Back says about it and that it seems like we might rip even higher by the end of the year. Let's get to it.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, CoinKite. If you take your Bitcoin security seriously, you'll need the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market to take self-custody. That's where Cold Card comes in. The Cold Card Q is the most advanced Bitcoin signing device ever made. It's got a full keyboard, larger screen, and NFC support, making air-gap signing easier than ever. It's built for power users who want the ultimate security without sacrificing usability. And if you're looking for a battle-tested, uncompromising cold storage, the Cold Card MK4 is your go-to with PSBT signing, an industrial-grade secure element, and USB-C. It's the perfect blend of security and convenience. Both devices are, of course, 100% Bitcoin only, open source, and built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Secure your Bitcoin the right way with the Cold Card Q and the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store.
All right, guys, make sure you get literally the industry standard hardware wallet, the Cold Card Q. It's the sexiest hardware wallet. Anyways, use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off. All right, guys. First of all, there's a huge storm outside, so hopefully my internet doesn't get wrecked on today's show. anyways, we got this clip here of Adam Back. Now, we've been talking about this on the show. I'm sure if you're on Twitter, you've been seeing a lot of people talk about the idea of diminishing returns and the fact that, hey, like this so far, even though we have the most bullish news cycle around Bitcoin, what is going on with the price? Like the price should be ripping. Everyone's been saying from what I'm seeing, the Bitcoin price should be 150, 200K. Like that's not what I'm saying. That's what other people are saying, even though I do kind of agree with it. But we have this clip here of Adam Back basically being almost more bullish than Luke ever is on his channel. And you all know Adam Back. He's legendary, literally referenced in the white paper. And he is doubling down on the idea that diminishing returns is wrong. So as he said, we could be hitting a tipping point. Now, let's see what his basis is, and then we will chat about it, and I'll show you the S-curve adoption chart and all the charts. I'll show you all the charts. Anyways, let's play the clip.
And, you know, the fact that we had an end of epoch new all-time high, 73.5 just before the halving, it's kind of, I viewed as a kind of confirmation that, you know, it would have gone higher if not for all of those headwinds. And so, you know, I think it's probably incorrect to draw too many inferences from the last cycle. And so, you know, if you take that out, I think that there's a lot of positive news that, you know, $100,000 is way too cheap. I expect we'll end the year much higher, and, you know, we get between 500,000 and a minimum and a million during this cycle. So we'll see if that transpires. And I think the other thing is, you know, people talk about diminishing returns, and you've got the different models. I mean, models are not necessarily that predictive, but, you know, stock to flow, power law, various other models, and, you know, they are this diminishing return theory. You know, like technically an S curve, like adoption of internet, adoption of mobile phones when they first came out, things like that. They go through a gradually phase where it's kind of niche thing and it's expensive and very few people have it, and then it becomes a social phenomenon when everybody has it, and the adoption starts to get steeper, right? So it could almost be the opposite, right? People are calling for diminishing returns, but, you know, maybe there are 100 million people with some form of Bitcoin exposure. You know, that can reach a tipping point when there are a few more people that have it, so that, you know, everybody's talking about it, and then.
Interesting. All right, guys. So first of all, for you guys that aren't familiar with the S-curve adoption, you know, I just did a simple Google search and it pops up. So you'll see here, you know, just an AI overview here. The S-curve in technology adoption refers to a model depicting how a new technology's adoption rate progresses over time, following a non-linear S-shaped pattern. It starts slowly with early adopters, which I would argue is where we are, then accelerates as it gains mainstream acceptance, and finally slows down as saturation is reached. This curve is often visualized as a graph showing cumulative adoption versus time. So just kind of breaking that down and kind of connecting this to the Bitcoin price, I think we are still in this first part. It starts slowly with early adopters. And if you look over here on the side, you know, I'll kind of zoom in, you can see that even with the S-curve adoption of various new technologies, the internet, PC, mobile phone, TV, electricity, airplane, telephone, and the automobile, you can see times where, you know, the price seems, or rather the adoption levels seem to be kind of slowly going, and then it kind of flattens out, and then it starts ripping upwards. We've seen this play out many times. And even in the TV, which might be like the biggest, you know, adoption here, you see it kind of started slow and then it did the S. See it with the PC, similar, you know, kind of slow, even topped out a little bit, and then it rips up. Now, the only one that's kind of different is the internet. But even if you zoom in here, oh, it won't do it for me. You can see it kind of slowed, you know, a little slow, gradual adoption, and then it ripped up, of course, as it gained mainstream acceptance. Now, I think the real question here is, do you guys think we have reached mainstream acceptance of Bitcoin? That is the fundamental question. We've all been kind of looking at Bitcoin. We all have various heuristics of where are we in the adoption cycle. I know you guys have all seen the Laffer curve here, where it's like early adopters, you know, early innovators, mainstream adoption, laggards, et cetera, et cetera. I can pull that up later for you guys. The question I think on all of our minds is, where are we on the adoption cycle of Bitcoin? Now, if you look at the halving cycles, of course, I'm over here on BitBull, you can see various charts here. And this one is Bitcoin halving progress. As you can see, compared to other cycles, it's not too far off what we've seen in the past. So I know a lot of us, and I've been kind of on the fence on whether we're still in cycle theory or it's breaking down and we are entering this adoption curve. One thing I do like to mention is it does seem like we might be seeing this adoption curve where, actually, I'll go over here, where you see Bitcoin kind of, you know, it looks like it's leveling off. And then at a certain point, whatever that tipping point is when you start to see that S-curve adoption cycle. Now, looking from other, you know, charts here, cycle low multiple, you can see here, and I'm the most colorblind guy ever, but you can see, what is this, the 2013 in blue, and then what is 2021 in green, and is this yellow for 2017, and then of course down here at the bottom is red for this current cycle. And we showed you this chart before, but I think in context of the S-curve adoption, It's very interesting to watch. Like, are we going to start seeing the Bitcoin price rip? Are we going to have a later blow off top than we've seen in previous cycles? Or is this, pretty much following the 2017 top? And I know last week we were looking at the 2021 bull run, and I was like, hey, if we just hit the 2021 bull run here, like, I think we'll all be pretty happy. And again, another one. And I've been referencing this conversation I had with Stefan Livera at BitBlock Boom. And if you do look at this chart here, I think diminishing returns does kind of play out in everyone's mind. As you can see, era 2, was the highest peak here. Then era 3, it was a little lower. And then era 4, which was the disappointing bull run of 2021, it was significantly lower. And as of now, diminishing return meme does seem to line up to reality. And of course, here we are very big on just understanding Bitcoin in context to reality, not just ideology, not just what we want it to do, but looking at the hard data and being like, okay, this is where we are. So I think if you look at the halving charts or the bull markets compared to previous cycles, the diminishing return meme does line up very well. Like, I think it's a very conservative idea to be like, yeah, I mean, diminishing returns so far based on the data is playing out. Though I want to bring back the S-curve adoption cycle, because you can see it does seem like maybe we're going to see, something like that, and then it starts ripping up. And do we know what the tipping cycle is? No, but I do want to maybe I can pull it up while we get Chad and Luke to talk about it. That infamous chart, and I know you guys have seen it, of the Bitcoin price based on the S-curve adoption, and this is like the most hopium inundated chart ever, where like, yeah, it looks like it's diminishing return, but at a certain point we get that S-curve adoption and it starts ripping. So I'll try to find this, and I'm gonna do a curveball here because Chad's been kind of killing it. Chad, what's your thoughts on diminishing returns, and are we following the S-curve of technological adoption in terms of Bitcoin adoption?
So how much time you got? Here's the thing, man. I started in my IT career back in the early 90s with the internet, and I was in college, found out about this internet thing, email, oh, this is the coolest thing, email I could send to people on the mainframe, and watching the internet grow and all the things online where people didn't understand. I was working at a company, and I was like, we have to get electronic mail because it's so productive, and everybody thought I'd lost my mind. So I've been through that exact curve before, and we are not even remotely into early adopter phase in my mind. Because when you look at those things, the reason the television shot up as fast as it did is because what is the thing that's holding you back? Literally, you buy a TV, you plug it in at your house, and now it connects to stuff over the airwaves automatically. The difficulty level of a television is basically 0. When you start looking at some of those other things, like an automobile, well, you have to learn how to drive. So it's difficult to map those things one-to-one. Understanding self-sovereign money with Bitcoin is a big deal. And without having the financial tools, the pool was smaller than it is nowadays. And I 100%, I'm a self-sovereign guy. Let's hardware wallets, let's do the thing. But when it comes to that kind of reality of you are 100% responsible for your money, that is a huge mindset shift for people in the modern society. People are not ready to take responsibility. We're a society full of children, and it's pathetic, honestly. And that's one of the things I think the reason diminishing returns has been a thing is because the pool of people that are willing to take their own responsibility and the willingness to handle things and understand it and learn about it and spend your 10,000 hours and all those kinds of things, that pool is only so big. And I'm already putting in as much money as I possibly can into Bitcoin. I mean, I still have chairs and I'm not selling my bases, but other than that, the point is that, I mean, those of us that are in. So we have to now get that information out to the next batch of folks, which could potentially be those people that are going to buy the ETFs and then learn about it and get more information. But we're in the early stages in my mind. Cycle theory has happened because the pool is small. But in terms of actual adoption, we're not even started yet. Take a look at the price of gold in Weimar, Germany, and the giant spikes. And that's the kind of chart we're talking about with Bitcoin. And we're on the left side of that chart.
Man, killing it. As Elaine said here, all the Bitcoin maxis are 140 plus IQs, and this is a fact with Chad Mercer coming on here, just killing it. I did find a chart here. It's not the exact chart I wanted, but I think it makes my point anyway. So let me just pull this up real quick, and then I'll get Luke to, chat about what he thinks. And here, like, I think this chart is very, very interesting here. Do we know when this tipping point is? But essentially, you can see like the whole, you can kind of see it here at the bottom, but it's a video. So here, let me just like do this, and you can kind of see it there, guys. Like the bottom price, all the price that we've seen in the last 15 years on a certain time frame, and I do truly believe this, it's going to look flat when we actually hit that tipping point of mainstream adoption and we hit that S curve. And do we know when that is? Maybe it's a decade from now. Maybe, as Adam backs, maybe it's this cycle. I'm being a little more conservative. I think it's more of a decade from now, like maybe 10 years is when we still have some gains left in this Bitcoin thing. But I'll try to find the meme while Luke goes. So Luke, what's your thoughts? Are we seeing diminishing? Actually, I already know your answer. I know you don't like diminishing returns. So rip it, and then we're going to talk to Chad. Chad's been killing it, so I'm excited for this.
Yeah, I mean, diminishing returns, power laws, throw them all in the trash. I think all of these models are completely useless, and this is why, okay? These guys don't extrapolate out the maths or the end game, okay? So a lot of people, how much wealth is there in the world today? Let's be conservative and say there's $900 trillion of wealth. Let's completely ignore the $1 quadrillion derivatives market. There's $900 trillion of wealth. Do we really think Bitcoin can only get 10% of the world's wealth? $90 trillion? I think that's stupidly conservative. But let's say your end game for Bitcoin is $90 trillion. We're at $2 trillion today. It's taken us 16 years to go from 0 to $2 trillion. Do we really think that every 16 years, Bitcoin's going to slowly but surely grow $2 trillion for what? How many years is this? Is this 400 years before Bitcoin reaches $90 trillion in size? This is kind of what the diminishing returns theory bros are projecting. I mean, are they really so bearish to think that they're not? Bitcoin can't capture 10% of the world's wealth when it's 1,000 times better at storing capital than everything else in the $900 trillion. So again, I think there's a lack of big picture thinking amongst the diminishing returns theory bros. They're saying, look at the past 16 years of data, let's extrapolate that forward. I just think that's completely stupid. It's completely faulty. It doesn't make any sense. We're in a completely different regime post-2020. Like pre-2020, we're in a regime where there was no demand for Bitcoin from the people who actually had access to all of the large pools of capital. No nation states, no sovereign wealth funds, no pension funds, no Larry Finks, no Michael Saylors, no public companies were adopting Bitcoin pre-2020. So the guys who actually control the majority of the $900 trillion of Bitcoin, before 2020, they were not demanding Bitcoin. And at the same time, there was an abundant amount of supply available of Bitcoin. We know that the available Bitcoin on exchanges only grew before 2020. Now, I think we're in a completely different supply and demand regime post-2020. We've actually seen 35% of all the available Bitcoin leave the exchanges. More than 1 million Bitcoin have left the exchanges since 2020. We now have a consistent trend of the supply of Bitcoin diminishing rapidly. And what about the demand? We now have demand from the big boys. So I think projecting all of that 12 years worth of data between 2008 and 2020 forwards, it's a terrible idea. I don't think it makes any sense whatsoever. And I think, like I continue to say, price is the most useless metric. It is a lagging indicator, and the price over the past 4 years or 5 years since we've been in this new regime, it is lulling everybody into sleep, and it is preparing a lot of people to make really foolish mistakes, thinking that, oh, Bitcoin's going to top at 180K and I'm going to buy more Bitcoin at 120K. And again, the creator of this model has openly said, oh, I'm going to multiply my Bitcoins by 12x by trading these stupid bands that I've drawn on the chart. I think it's a dangerous idea. I would just highly encourage everybody else to study the history of technologies, because technologies get adopted in exponential curves. I think we're incredibly early in Bitcoin's adoption cycle. I 100% agree with Chad. I think we are not even close to any sort of well, so hang on. I do think we're close to a tipping point, but I do think we're a long way away from mainstream Bitcoin adoption. Again, I could talk about this topic for hours. A lot of people genuinely just think I'm a hopium dealer. They just think that I'm as bullish as I am just for the fun of things, and I just don't believe the things I say. If that were true, I would just say, why did I shit on stock to flow in 2021? A model that was predicting $288,000 and $1 million by 2030, and the power law predicting $1 million by 2033. I think a lot of people, a lot of these promoters of these models say, don't listen to Simply Bitcoin. They're too bullish. Don't listen to Crazy Luke with the cut. He's just a hopium dealer. He doesn't believe the numbers he's talking about. They're just bull tarts, right? This is what the creators of these models say. And just think about it for a minute. If we really just wanted to be bull tarts getting clicks, wouldn't we love power law models and, stock to flow models? Wouldn't that make more sense? So again, I just genuinely believe most people haven't studied the history of technology. Technologies get adopted in exponential curves, and I think Bitcoin's really rare because it has two different adoption curves. You have a medium of exchange adoption curve, which is going to take decades longer to reach full saturation. This is tracking how many people are using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange and a unit of account. How many of my local Karens are buying coffees with Bitcoin, okay? This is the second adoption curve, which I think is going to take so much longer to play out. I think the more meaningful adoption curve for Bitcoin's price and adoption is the store of value adoption curve. And again, I've probably talked for 10 minutes, so I'm not going to talk about the differences between these two adoption curves, but the first adoption curve, the store of value adoption curve, I think we're beginning to, in the minds of the people who actually control all of the capital in the world, the Larry Finks, nation states, pension funds, public corporations, you guys get who I'm talking about. These guys control the $900 trillion of capital, and their adoption rate is much, much higher than the Karens using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange to buy their coffees. And I think the rapid adoption we are seeing in these big entities enter the space post-2020, I think that's what we need to be paying attention to when we are thinking about these adoption curves.
100%, Luke. Absolutely killed it. Look, I pulled up some charts here, guys, and these aren't the ones that I had in mind, but I think it makes the point for us anyway. So go to Bitcoin versus global adoption path, or RWA, global adoption path. And you can see here 3% adoption Bitcoin in 2025, online banking. It's similar to online banking in 1996, social media in 2005, internet in 1990. And you could basically, and of course we're speculating here, but put all of the Bitcoin price gains you've seen so far on this S curve. And if this plays out, it's very hard to say that we're not going to see some crazy gains left in Bitcoin. And then another one here, similar S-curve adoption. Again, this isn't the one that I've seen. The one I've seen is like literally on TradingView, and it's like the most hopium ridden chart ever. But you can see here, early innovators, the early adopters at 10%, then the early majority. And I think I'd kind of argue that maybe it could be even pushed back a little bit. I think we might still be early adopters. Now we're entering early majority. And as you can see, as more people come on, I have one simple heuristic. Like, if you guys still talk to normal people and you go out in public, and of course they don't have much capital, like your friends and family probably aren't the Larry Finks of the world, but if you go out and talk to normal people and you ask them about Bitcoin, they all basically have the same view. It's like, what? Like, okay, cool story, bro. Did you hear about the game? And the last one, which I think obviously this is a meme, this is speculation here, but we are probably in this acceleration phase. And then if we do get, or rather when we do get a hyper growth phase, is when we see what Luke's been saying, 100K Omega candles. And then maybe 100 years from now, maybe 30 years from now is where you get this deceleration phase. And then the gains are quote unquote gone in Bitcoin. It's just the best store of value, the perfect money, something that doesn't lose value. And then as Chad was saying, here is the price of gold in Weimar marks here. And so these are all charts that all of us Bitcoiners love, and you can see the extreme volatility here. So none of this is new. None of this is out of the realm of possibilities. We've seen all of this stuff play out before. And again, we could talk about this forever, but I do want to go quickly into the culture so that we can talk with Chad, because he's just dropping hot fire on us. So we're going to transition to the culture, guys, and we got some interesting stories for you.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledin has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally not only have an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledin is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you today. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 0.25% off their first loan by using the link in the video/podcast description. What are you waiting for? Head over to ledin.io today.
All right, Chad. So this is going to be fun, guys. So we have a 2014 Bitcoiner, and we're going to do his rabbit hole story, and then he's going to teach you guys how to orange pill properly. Hopefully, I know you guys need some help with that, and then also an interesting story about recovering an old Bitcoin wallet. So we got some cool stuff here. Again, Chad literally reached out to us at BitBlock Boom. He's like, dude, I watch your show. He's like, I watch your show on 3X every single day. I got a lot of content to get through. So literally, one of you guys in the chat, and you've just been killing it today. You've been giving great signal on today's show. But let's start with your rabbit hole story, man. You said you're a 2014 Bitcoiner, and before the show, you're like, look, I'm a 2014 Bitcoiner, but I'm a little ashamed to say I did get sidetracked, but I think there's some lessons in there, Chad. So let's talk about it. 2014 Bitcoiner, and your journey to get to this point.
Yes, I was looking up today before the show. I was looking up my my Coinbase account, because that's where I started. October 18th, 2014, I bought Bitcoin at $391.37.
Legend.
And I hate myself every time I see that number, because of course I'm a smart guy and I am a programmer, and Bitcoin is boring, and there's all these shiny things that are code, and I can go work on some altcoin stuff. And I was there, draining Doge from Doge faucets when they were giving away Dogecoin back in the day. I mean, the good news about that was I was able to trade that into Bitcoin. So that was an appropriate trade. But yeah, I got sidetracked by a bunch of shit coins. Got into a lot of the, how do I optimize, trying to figure out ways to feed my kids. It's important to feed your family. And so I ended up selling a lot of Bitcoin at higher prices. I mean, I made my returns. I was in that investment mindset that you're in, taught in school or whatever, read my Kiplinger's magazine, and Bitcoin is just one of my diversified portfolio, which at this point I realize is nonsense. But basically at this point, I'm 100% Bitcoin maxi to the nth degree. I've done all the things in terms of making the mistakes. I've lost wallets and all those kinds of things. So I do think it's very important that people understand what they're getting into. And so I think that the orange pilling thing that Opti's talking about, I think it's very important that people understand that not everybody is going to be at the maxi level immediately. So you have to meet people where they are. So I think that's the most important thing from an orange pilling perspective. And from are you really smarter than Bitcoin? Adam Back is there, like, blowing my mind every time he talks. And you got maulers out there, and just all these guys, there's so many people in the community. Even at BitBlock Boom, I met half a dozen or a dozen folks. I was in Denver earlier this year at a heat punk summit where people are like heating their homes with Bitcoin, and which I've been doing for a while. Those kinds of things are just, there's so many people that understand it. And it's not just about money. It's about the philosophy and the freedom and all of those things that are very important. So
absolutely love it, Chad. Before we get into your orange pill story, like I would say a pretty solid orange pill story, I want to ask you, what do you think was the one catalyst for you that finally made like the whole Bitcoin maxi, for lack of better terms, click to you?
I would say that there's a couple of things. Number one, the situation around a lot of the nonsense with FTX and all that, the paper Bitcoin that was occurring, and the proof of reserves kind of argument that came out, as well as the shift with Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake. Because that was one of those things where it's like, wait a second, you're telling me it's ultrasound money, all those kinds of things, all the stories, but you've changed the monetary policy how many times now? And oh, you guys can just vote to do that, and it's only about 6 people that get to make that decision, and now it's all the people that hold all the money that get to make those decisions. That doesn't seem very appropriate at all. That's like a literal copy of the existing system. That's not what we want. Philosophically, as Bitcoiners, we want sound money, truth at the foundational layer. 21 million, and there's never going to be more, right? So that shift was the thing that, okay, it's the number 2 cryptocurrency or whatever, and it became very obvious when that one went completely south that everything else is just a bad version of Bitcoin. Solana, from an implementation and technological perspective, you compare that with Ethereum, it's like, yeah, it's way faster, but it's less stable. And Ethereum's already hot garbage when it comes to that in comparison to Bitcoin in my mind. So as a technologist, Bitcoin is the only answer. Like, stop looking for other stuff. Just do it with Bitcoin.
Totally. And like before, I do want to comment on this because I've noticed this as well. There's a lot of really smart people that come into Bitcoin that are like yourself, IT guys. They've been around computers for forever, and I forget, for lack of better terms, they like see the new shiny thing, and they're like, yes, 100%. Like I want to, I can tweak this and I can mess with this. And then they get sidetracked. And just because you're like a very smart guy and you're a part of computers, there is a whole lot of different things and disciplines around Bitcoin that you do need to understand to fully grok like why Bitcoin is different. And it's not just, it's a new technology, and it's programmable money, and I can tweak it and I can manipulate it, and it's like, yeah, that's cool and all, but like, that's literally what you said, recreating the fiat system. So I just wanted to jump in there, but let's go to, like you said, you're an IT guy. And let's jump into this orange pill story, because I think people can learn on what you said. And I've been saying this on the show for a long time. I got this from How to Win Friends and Influence. And it's essentially, you got to bait the hook for the fish you're trying to catch. And you said something very similar. So give some context to the people. Who did you orange pill and how did you do it?
So I have orange pilled a few people, some business associates and whatever. One of the guys that watches the show all the time, he's actually in El Salvador right now. Legend. And he's buying stuff with Bitcoin down in El Salvador. So that's pretty cool. But the story that I had been talking with Nico about a little bit at BitBlock Boom was orange pilling the company that I work for. I work for an architecture firm here in Wichita, Kansas. We have multiple offices and whatever. But the way that I did it, my boss is the CFO, and I've known her for decades, literally, and just started working at the company to help out in IT. And then I run the IT department now. But with that, I had gotten her into Bitcoin back in the earlier times. And let me first of all say, everything I say is not on behalf of the company, et cetera, legal nonsense. Okay. So anyway, I had been heating my house with Bitcoin miners for a while. The old S9 slap at the basement. It runs on regular power. Oh, I need to get a better one. I put it in my garage, those kinds of things. But I had these miners, and I was trying to get her to let me get the company into Bitcoin. So what I did was I figured out a way to get miners into the building and set up an account and mined into that account. And then one day I showed her Bitcoin wallet that had an amount of Bitcoin in it. I'm not obviously going to divulge amounts, but anyway, it was like, yeah, you notice how the meeting rooms aren't cold anymore. You notice how your office is warmer. Not only is it warmer, but you actually have all this Bitcoin now. So the company had Bitcoin on their balance sheet at that point, and then at that point, I was able to give a presentation to the executive team. I sat down and gave them all the charts and did all the things. And hey, I've been doing this for a minute, and here's the technology, and here's the monetary principles and things like that. And so they were willing to get into that. And so we have Bitcoin on the balance sheet. We are engaged in mining, and we are an architecture firm. So one of the things that I've been working with the president, the company, and my boss, the CFO, and we've been kind of talking through like models to involve Bitcoin from a heating perspective, which is why I was at the Bitcoin Heat Punk Summit. Tons of guys there that I met that were just super awesome. Tyler Stevens, the guy that started that summit, has written a cool book on heat reuse with mining. And there's tons of people. I'm working with a bunch of guys that I met with up there. There's a guy that does hot tub heating, which I'm getting ready to implement at my house with an old hot tub that was getting thrown away. And I was like, hey man, I can heat that with my Bitcoin miner. And the guys that are running resorts that are heating their resorts with the Bitcoin mining. So I'm really excited about that part. And so to me, it's not just hey, it's a company that's putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. It's a company that is hopefully going to be able to help people to design buildings where we are using Bitcoin mining to heat the building, which is an exciting, in my mind, very exciting thing to do.
So. Yeah, I think the takeaway here, the TLDR, guys, is, give your friends, your family, whoever you're trying to pitch Orange Pill, like a concrete example of how Bitcoin improves their lives. And of course, not everyone's going to be able to recreate what you did and just like plug in miners at your office and be like, oh, hey guys, yeah, so I've been mining on company electricity and look at our wallet. Like,
I don't know, man.
Right.
Those miners are cheap now. You can get some S9s real cheap. Just slide them in the cabinet. You know what I mean?
That's so fun. Yeah. Again, this is not financial advice nor career advice. I do not advise you doing this, but hey, find concrete examples to show people how Bitcoin improves their lives. I've been saying this for a long, long time. Now, I do kind of want to pivot here because we are kind of getting to the end of the show. And I did mention that you mentioned to us this idea of recovering an old Bitcoin wallet. Again, you don't have to divulge how much Bitcoin, but maybe people are feeling this, maybe people have gotten themselves in this position and maybe there's some hope there that they can get back into it. So okay. Hey, let's talk about this story.
So first of all, this is going to be one of those things I'm glad that this is going to be on the internet, because now I'm just going to have no shame left, because this is super embarrassing. So let's just say that I've been in Bitcoin long enough that I had a paper wallet, or an old wallet from the old Bitcoin Core software, where your wallet was actually literally the Bitcoin software, and had the passphrase on it, and the seed words and all this stuff, right? And I'm a smart guy, right? So I'm super smart. I know that I need to pick a password that nobody's going to know, right? So I got to pick this is before all the password managers and stuff like that. Anyway, so I can't even believe I'm going to say this. So I have this wallet, and I can't figure out the passphrase. I find the wallet later. It's like I wasn't even thinking about it or whatever, and I was like, wait a minute, I have a wallet. So I go and check, and I can't open the wallet because I can't remember the password, because I'm a smart guy, and I'm so smart I tricked myself. So I didn't have the password. So anyway, there's a password recovery guy, and I unfortunately I don't have his contact information. But if you hit me up on Orange Pill or whatever, I'd be happy to share his contact information. And he was like, hey, I can recover your phrase, or I can recover your wallet, but you'll have to give me a percentage of the Bitcoin. And I was like, well, let me just see if I can figure it out. And I literally ran a brute force hacking software against my wallet for literally months, and I could not come up with anything. So anyway, I finally was like, well, I can either get 0 Bitcoin or whatever it was, 70% or the Bitcoin or whatever. Anyway, I sent it to this guy, and he was like, dude, I don't know. This is crazy. This password is insane. What did you do? And I was like, I don't know. He was like, all right, well, sorry, man. I was like, all right, whatever. Like 5 years later.
Wow.
5 years later, the guy like sends me an email, and he's like, hey, by the way, I cracked your password or whatever. And I was like, no way. And he's like, no, really. He's like, give me a wallet address or whatever, and I can send you the whatever percentage. I think he takes 70 or he takes 30% of the wallet. And for the record, it is not a gajillion Bitcoin, so no $5 wrench attacks, please. Anyway, I was like, so can you tell me what the password was? This is making me crazy. Like, how could I not remember this password? And he's like, if I give you a single word of this password, you will know what the password is, and then you will be able to recover it, right? And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And so I sent it to him, and he sent me the Bitcoin. And the password was, and let me be very clear, the reason that this makes sense at all is because I'm a huge metalhead. I listen to metal, like that's the only thing I listen to anymore. I mean, I love Meshuggah and Living Sacrifice and all kinds of stuff. I was in a metal band for a long time. Anyway, the password was, I like big butts and I cannot lie. That was the password. Because no one is going to guess that I'm going to use that phrase. I was having a conversation with my wife, who is a big rap fan. And she said that she was like, listening to a song. I was like, is that really what the lyrics are? And she's like, yeah. She's like, and she, recited the lyrics or whatever. I was like, I can't believe that's actually lyrics in a song. And she was like, yeah, it is. And so that was the password that I used, was a phrase that I couldn't believe was real.
That is so funny. Locked yourself out of your wallet because of a Sir Mix-a-Lot song. That is absolutely hilarious.
Yep.
Wow.
And she does not let me live that down, for the record. So anyway.
Oh man, that's a great story. Absolutely, as the chat said, like Chad's like an actual OG. What a legend! This is too funny. Also, I mean, kudos to that. The wallet hacker dude for like being moral and ethical about it and be like, hey, years later, oh, actually, dude, I just got into your wallet. Like, that's pretty cool.
And let me be clear, just in case anybody wants to do it, the way that particular thing worked, you didn't have to send your actual wallet. There was a specific methodology you could use with that particular version of the software where you could send, and I don't remember all the technical details, but you could send him a thing where he couldn't move the Bitcoin, but he could detect whether or not he unlocked that wallet. So
interesting.
Anyway, nowadays it's not really a thing. And hey, by the way, you should buy all the awesome things that they sell on this show because they're awesome, and you should get those.
Let's go. Well, man, I think that I don't know if we can top that story on today's show. So Chad, that was amazing. I don't know, Luke, you want to chime in here, get some lulls on this, or we could wrap up today's show?
No lulls. I'm going to put my serious Luke cap on here for a moment, because I've done the exact same thing. I, again, tried to big brain myself, and the first ever hardware wallet I ever used back in like 2017, it was a Ledger. And I was like, okay, if I'm writing down my seed phrase, I've got to do a big brain Luke, right? So what I did was I wrote down a different word of my seed phrase on a different page of a book. It was an old school book with a ton of writing in it. And long story short, I checked back in on that hardware wallet like 2 to 3 years later in 2019 and 2020. And I figured out that not only did I forget my passcode to my Ledger that I didn't look at for like 3 years, but I also cocked up my seed phrase. So it was all scrambled because I had like 24 words on different pages, and you would think I would do it like word 1 on page 1, word 2 on page 2. Oh no, I really tried to big brain myself. So they were like, I scrambled it all up. Long story short, there was like 2 words out of my seed phrase that I was pretty sure was wrong because they were kind of like spelled a little bit funky. So I also used one of those brute forcing tools, and I had to like let it run offline for like a couple of weeks, and it eventually gave me my seed phrase back and gave me access to my wallet that might have had like 20 to 30% of my life savings in it. So it was a good chunk, right? Wow. So what I will say is I encourage the people, please do firstly, never put all your Bitcoin in the one setup. Diversification of Bitcoin setups is a great idea. Always make sure that you can never spend all of your own Bitcoins, and never have your hardware wallets in your own house. I travel a lot around the world, and none of the Bitcoin that I have on me, none of the hardware wallets I have on me can actually spend Bitcoin. I have to go to different countries to pick up different seeds, to do all sorts of different things to spend my Bitcoin. So I would just encourage everybody to actually, you know, take your self-custody seriously. Do a check-in once a month, maybe once every 2 months. If you have passwords to remember, if you have backup phrases distributed in different locations, it doesn't have to be around the world, just around your town. You know, I mean, do a check-in, do a checkup. Make sure your mum hasn't lost that strange piece of titanium with your 12 words on it that she thinks is just a play toy. It's very important, mum. Look after this thing like it's generational wealth. And yeah, do a check-in on your security, because again, we talk about these really bullish prices of Bitcoin in the future. I always talk about how Bitcoin is generational wealth. You need less than you think. But the biggest caveats I make in all of my bull-tarded hopium dealing videos is this only applies if you actually look after your Bitcoin or self-custody your Bitcoin. If Bitcoin's at $10 million a coin and you have Bitcoin on Coinbase, you don't have generational wealth. If Bitcoin's at $10 million a coin and you own BlackRock's Bitcoin IBIT ETF and you trust a previous Bitcoin hater, you don't have generational wealth. You only have it if it's in your own custody and you actually have control over your own Bitcoin. So again, what's the simple rule of Bitcoin? KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Again, learn from mine and Chad's mistakes. Just look after your Bitcoin like it is generational wealth today. That would be my biggest message there.
Love
Preach.
it. Wow.
Preach.
Yeah, preach. Hold on. Some horn. Hold on.
Yeah, listen.
For both of Chad and Luke. Let's go. Wow. What a show. You know, we got super bullish, and then actually, you know, there was some serious signal here at the end of this show. So, man, really appreciate you coming on, Chad. Actually, Chad, let's plug your socials again. It's been on the show, but it is a little different than usual. So if people wanted to reach out to you, maybe they need to brute force their wallets as well. Where can people get in touch with you?
I'm mostly on Nostr and the Orange Pill app. I tend to stay away from most of the normal socials. So if you want to hit me up, you can find me on X as well. And if you want to put something in the chat, you know, that you're interested to talk to me in this video, I'd be happy to reach out to you directly on the YouTube side of things as well. So.
Awesome, guys. So yeah, so reach out to Chad either on Nostr or Orange Pill app at Thak, THAK777, and then of course we got Luke here. Luke, they'll be seeing you more often here, but plug your socials real quick, and then we'll wrap up today's show.
Yeah, I talk trash on YouTube. That is me. I have a Twitter as well, so if you want to roast my dodgy haircut, you can do that on Twitter or YouTube.
Let's go. All right, guys, I'm going to pull you behind the scenes as I wrap up today's show. All right, guys. Also, let's talk about Bitcoin Conference 2025. We are taking over Vegas. Embrace the game theory. Make sure you use the promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off your tickets. It is less, well, it's, you know, I was going to say less than a month away. It's a month and a couple of days away, guys. It's going to be the world's largest Bitcoin event. And if the price is pumping, it's literally going to be the biggest Bitcoin conference yet. So you want to get out there. We're taking over the Venetian in Las Vegas. Again, scan the QR code and get yourself a ticket. You don't want to FOMO last minute. All right, guys, it's your boy Opti. Nico texted me this morning. He will be back tomorrow. So we'll be back for a Friday show at our normal programming. And of course, come back same time as always. And also, I do want to plug our Substack again. I want you guys to go check it out. We did do we're dropping a lot of articles, and today we dropped a new one right off the press in regards to 21 Capital and what Jack Mallers and Tether and Cantor Fitzgerald are doing, kind of showing you what the implications are and how big of a news story this actually is. So, you know, there's been some hate around Jack Mallers and partnering with Tether, but I think this is one of those defining moves that we'll look back on and be like, it was so obvious. Anyways, this is your host for today, Opti, and we will be back tomorrow for another episode. Peace out. Have a good one.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.